Welcome to the Blender Goon. In this video, we are going to make us a little table and chair, and I'm going to focus on how to unwrap and bake textures in a couple different ways because people have been asking me to make a video specifically on the baking process. So to get started, we need something to unwrap and texture, so we're going to make a little table and a chair. So Shift A, Mesh, Cube. We're going to hit GZ and move it up one. Go into edit mode, grab the bottom face, and move it up to tabletop size. Then we're going to go back in object mode, do a Shift D, copy that. Scale it on Shift Z. Back in edit mode, grab this, move it down just a hair. I'm going to X-ray mode so you guys see what I'm doing. So it's right at the top of the table. I don't want any clipping, so I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to delete that face. So that face is gone, and I'm going to grab the bottom face. And we're going to GZ and move it down and line it up with the bottom there. And then go into 7, hit A. 7 on the number pad, hit A, and we're going to move it over here. And since we're in edit mode, the point of origin doesn't move, so we can add us a mirror modifier. And that puts 1 on the X, and then if we select the Y, it puts 1 on the Y. And now we've got all our legs there, and I'm actually going to delete that face also, because nobody's going to see the bottom of the table legs. So that gives us a table. We need to mark some seams on it to unwrap the legs here, so I'm going to go in Edge select that edge and right click and mark seam, and that turns that red, and all the rest of them will be red because we're going to apply the modifier. And now they're all applied, and we can unwrap the top also. So I'm just going to go in edit mode, and I'm going to mark the 4 corners and 3 of the edges and mark seams. Now if we hit A and unwrap and go to UV editing, that gives us our table top with our table bottom. And if we take the legs, we can go in edit mode in them, hit A, U, and unwrap also, and that gives us all 4 legs. They look kind of funny here though, so back in object mode and go to object, apply all transforms, and we will unwrap those again, and it gives us a better result. We can do the same with this. Let's apply our transforms there. Before I apply this, I'm going to right click on it, and well, I have it on quick favorites, so add to quick favorites if you haven't. Then you can just hit Q and do all transforms, and then we're going to unwrap it again. It didn't change anything, so that's fine. So now that we have this shape, we're just going to copy it. So I'm going to select everything and hit Shift D and copy it. And I'm just going to scale it smaller to make a chair shape maybe a little bigger than that. And move it on to Y. We'll put it right there. I'm going to grab the legs and go into edit mode. And I'm going to hit L on one and L on the other and do a Shift D, Z, and move them up. Put it right there. I'm going to alt select the top of both, well, top of that one and hit F to fill it. Top of that one and hit F to fill it. So Control R, left click to confirm one, and then right click to drop it. And we're going to do the same on the other side. Left click and then right click. Now we can hit 2 or 3 rather, and select that face and this face, and right click Loop Tools Bridge. And that'll give us a back of the chair. If you don't have loop tools on, you go to edit, preferences, search in loop, and just turn on loop tools. That's under the add-ons. So now we need to get the top of our chair unwrapped. The bottom is still unwrapped because it's a copy of the table, and we already unwrapped it. So for this, I think I want to add some seams around here. And I think I want to cut that completely out. So I'm marking the seams to where this center piece is going to be its own little section. So the ones I have marked are the bottom here and those two edges on the inside of the bottom and the stuff up here. So right click mark seams. And then I want to make sure these guys get cut out too. So I'm going to grab this and that one and that one. Right click mark seams. And then if I do an AU unwrap, that should give us a nice section here. So we have this part, and if we take seams here, we can see what's what. So L on that, that's that part. L on this is the one side, and L on the other, and that's the other side. So our table and chair are all unwrapped now. So we have our table and chair built. The table is clipping through the legs here. You can see it. So we're going to stretch out our table a little bit. So I'm going to grab the legs and I'm going to grab the top, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a Control J on those. And then go into edit mode, and we're going to go into x-ray mode. I'm just going to grab the whole right side of the table here. Let's go to vertex. Grab the whole right side of the table. I'm going to go into front view, and I'm going to hit G, X, and move it over here. And then I'm going to grab the other side and do a GX and move it over here. And it doesn't really matter how wide it is for this this instance. So we have that. If we go into UV editing, oh, we are in UV editing. If we hit tab and hit A on it, we can see that we have overlapping things. So that's no good. So you can do it two ways. You can unwrap it again. So let me hit U unwrap, and that'll line everything up for you. Or you can also do it manually by hitting L on one of the vertex, and that'll select the top of the table, and we can take the whole top of the table and move it out of the way. Now if we hit A, we have our things are separated, and we can hit L on each leg and move them to their, select all that and move it to a space. So the top of the table is over here, and those legs are there. These front legs, we can do the same and move them like here. The back legs, do the same, move them like here. And then these legs, and move them over here. And then if we hit A, you can see all of them. And if you get one overlapping like that, you can just select a vertex on it, hit L, and just move it. Now we can arrange these on the UV however we want them and whatever size we want them. So the legs are smaller than the table surface, and so I don't care about the detail as much, so I can scale all those down. Then we can take this and rotate it 90 degrees and move it over here. And then we can take these guys and put them down there. And you can arrange your UV islands how you want them to dictate which way the texture is laying on the faces of the object. You can see now that they're this way. If I take this and I rotate it back, you can place this however you want. As long as things don't overlap, you're good to go. So I'm just going to take that whole thing and unwrap it again, and that leaves us there. So why are we doing all this? Well, when you bake in Blender, these islands can't overlap. If you're just taking photorealistic images or things like that, they can overlap and it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if they're on the texture space or not. But when you're baking, it does. So if these were overlapping here, when we bake it, they're going to bake on top of each other. And it's not going to give you a good result. One of them is going to be black. So depending on which one it decides to bake first, it may bake the top of the table and then bake the legs on top of it. So when you upload it into Secondlife and you put the texture on it, it's going to be weird. It's going to have black in one area, or it's just going to have the wrong texture in the wrong area. So if it bakes the tabletop first and then it bakes the legs, the part that's overlapped here is going to be on the top of the table as a texture, and you don't want that. Now, it doesn't matter where this stuff is in Second Life, or if it's two parts, and I'll show you that later. Um, the UV tells the model where the texture is supposed to go on the model. So if you have two models, you can have other stuff in here that isn't being accessed by one model. And I'll try to explain that whenever we do the chair, because we're going to do this a couple different ways. So this is the first way. It's going to be using one texture to cover the entire model. Before you bake, you need to do a few more things. So I'm going to just jump back into layout here, and I'm going to make a plane. And we're just going to scale it up so we have a floor. And we also need light in the scene, because right now if we look, it's kind of dark. And I'm in cycles here. So if you go here, I'm in cycles instead of EV. And I have GPU compute turned on, and I've turned my max samples down to 512. But we have no light in the scene, so we need a light. So Shift A, light, and we're going to do an area light. And we will put the area light in, and I'm going to scale it up real big. Move it up a little higher. And go to the light bulb here, and we're just going to crank the strength up on it until it lights up the scene. And that looks half decent. And I've even got a shadow on the chair there, which is good. If you want the shadow sharper, you can make the light smaller. So we're going to scale the light smaller. That way I got a better shadow on there. And I like that shadow a little better. But the light's too bright on there, so I'm going to move the light up. If you move the light up, that will give you less brightness on the top of the table, and it's more even lighting of the overall model. I think that's a little sharp now, so I'm going to make the light bigger again to soften up the shadows. So get the light up, and that softens up the sharpness of the shadow. So bigger the light, softer the shadow, smaller the light, sharper the shadow, closer to light, you have more fall off, and the farther away you have less fall off. So you can have more even lighting the farther away the light is. Now we need to check our face orientation. So you can go to the drop down here of your overlays and turn on face orientation, and you'll see that everything's blue. If it's not blue, you're going to have to fix that. But if you right click on here, you can add it to quick favorites. So then you could just hit Q and do face orientation, and Q and turn it back off. So let's Q. And to show you what I mean about it being the wrong way, I'm going to shift in and recalculate the normals to inside. So now you can see that this is red. If it's red, it's going to bake black, and it's going to give you issues, and you're going to hate life. So make sure you don't have red faces. If you do, you can hit A, select them all, and hit Shift in, and it should recalculate them the proper way. If there's one that's still red, you can just select it individually and hit Shift in, and then just flip it inside with your drop down here. So we know all our faces are turned right side out. So we can hit Q and, whoops, go back to object mode. Hit Q and turn your face orientations off. Our scene's lit, albeit it's still a little dark, but that's okay. Now we are going to go into shading, and everything's upside down. I've changed my window. It's still all the same tabs. I just made this space bigger so you could see the texture better. Select our tabletop, and we're going to add a new texture. And then I've downloaded a texture off the internet, just a wood texture. So find yourself a wood texture. I'm also using Node Wrangler. If you don't have it enabled, go to Edit, Preferences, search Node Wrangler, and turn on Node Wrangler. And then make sure you save it down here. And you can close that. Now when you select your principal BSDF, you can hit Control T, and it will bring up this, and I'm going to click open and go to my desktop and grab that wood texture and put it on there. And then up here you can scroll with your mouse wheel and turn on the viewport shading rendering. You can also hit Z and do that, or Z. And now if we jump back to layout, we can see our table is there. It's got the texture on it. And if we go to UV editing and then hit A over here, you can see where the texture is laying. And then we can scroll across here again or hit Z and go to rendering. And I like to turn my overlays off so that I don't see all this. And you can see that. Now if we select the table over here, I can move it around and you can see the texture on the right side moving. So wherever it is on the UV is where the texture is laying over here, and you can also adjust it by messing with your mapping scale. So I can change the scale of it. I actually think that scale looks a little better. Yeah, maybe not so much. Let's back it up a little bit. Yeah, about there. That looks good. Texture looks good on the legs. It looks good on the table. Now we can bake this table if we want to. But I'm going to go back to UV editing and I'm going to break it on purpose. So I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to make it overlap. So now they're overlapping. And we can go back to shading. And in order to bake, you need to have your object selected, which gives you your texture that's on the object. And you can do a Shift A texture, image texture. Before I click it, I'm going to right click it and add it to quick favorites. And then I can just hit Q and go image texture and pop it on there. Now we're going to go new. Now this image, new image, this is the size of your texture. So it's a 1024 by 1024. We don't need it that big. So I'm going to left click and select both of them. And I'm going to change it to 512. This will allow it to upload in Secondlife faster and turn off alpha. It'll allow it to upload to Secondlife faster and not lag people. Because if you have a bunch of 1012s, it's just going to lag everybody. And we're going to name this table bake. And click OK. Now we're ready to bake this thing. So we can go to the render properties, scroll down, go to bake, and click bake. And that pops that up. And you can see that it baked the tabletop first and then it baked the legs. So when we put this on in Secondlife, it's going to be weird. The tabletop is here and it's going to have these leg pieces. It's going to look exactly like that on a tabletop, so it's not going to be good. And we're going to upload it and show you. So before you upload, you want to make sure that your scale and everything's correct. So hit in, go to item, in object mode, and this is the size of the table. So it's 3 meters wide, 2 meters tall, and 2 meters in thickness. It's a little big, but it'll be fine. So we're going to file, export, Collada, and then we're going to go to operator presets, go to OpenSim static, uncheck copy textures. I'm going to put it on the desktop. I'm going to name it table broken and export to Collada. So the UV of the table, when you export it, it takes this UV with it. So if you change something on the UV, you'll need to export another table, which we'll do here in a little bit. Now that I have that exported, I need to save my bake also. So back to shading. Got your 3 little lines here on your bake. Let's zoom that out so you can see. 3 little lines on the bake, and the image has an asterisk beside it. That means you have an unsaved texture. So we can go to save as. I'm going to put it on the desktop. I'm going to name it broken bake and save the image. Hop into Secondlife. I'm on the test server here. I have a video telling you how to access the test server and get yourself access to uploading models. That's I think it's video 6 of my Blender for Secondlife playlist. And I'm actually going to try today to put a thumbnail to be able to click on. So look for it up here. So anyhow, go to build, upload, mesh model. Got it on the desktop. So desktop, broken table DAE. We could change the bottom, the lowest to 0. Go to physics because you need 1, and we're just going to make a cube, which puts that cube on there. Calculate weights and fees. and upload it. Now we can res it out. There's our table. You can hit the little plus here, go to upload image, and we're going to grab our broken bake and upload. So there's our broken, well, it's a Borkin bake. So if you edit your table, Second Life gives it a texture when it comes in. Oh, it actually came in white. Nice. It usually does not. So we're good there. We can take our Borkin table bake and drop it right on there, and it puts it in there. And if you, my win light settings are terrible. Um, Sky. 12 p.m. There we go. Now we get some light. If you look at it, you can see, just like I said, the leg bakes are on top of the table. And that is because of the UV map. It's exactly right there. And I'll let you look at it again. Exactly right there. So if we come back here and we fix this, so this is still selected, so I'm just going to move it over. So this is not overlapping. And go back to shading. Make sure this is selected. Make sure the table is selected and bake it again. Now it's fixed. Actually, I'm going to turn the specular down on it. So I'm going to zoom in on it. Turn the specular down. It'll just give it a more realistic look, and I'm going to bake it again. There we go. Now we need to export our table again because the first one's broken. So File, Export, Collada. The presets are all the same. We'll name it Table Fixed. As long as you don't close Blender, if you still have it open from before when you exported, you don't have to redo this operator presets. You can just rename it and export it again. And we'll also need to re-export or resave our bake. So we got an asterisk again. Save as. We can name it Working Table Fixed. Desktop. And save. Back to Second Life. We can delete this one. Actually, we'll leave it there. So build, upload, mesh model, fixed. Turn that one to 0. Get us a physics model. Calculate weights and fees. Upload. Res it out. Move it over here a little bit. Upload our fixed texture. Upload. And throw that on there. And now our table is fixed. And you can see the difference between the specular too. I took that specular off, so it's a darker looking table. You can see on our new model how it changed. The little swirly things here and the little swirly things over here now. That's because we moved our UV map, and the texture moves when you move the UV map. So to recap, we build our model, okay? Then go into edit mode, mark your seams, unwrap it, go into UV editing, make sure the islands are placed where you want them to be placed and have enough margin so that when it bakes it doesn't overlap itself. Then go back to layout, check your face orientation, make sure nothing's red, because if it's red it bakes black. Go ahead and bake your textures and save your texture under image, save as, and put it where you want to. It's a good idea to make a file to put all this stuff in. So put your DAE in it when you export and your bakes. Then go back to, after you bake your textures, go back to layout. You hit N to bring up the end panel in object mode under item, and check and make sure your scale is at 1, and check the size of your table that you want it to, the size it to be. If you scale your table, it changes the scale, so you need to go to Object, Apply, All Transforms to save the size of your table, the size it is, and then export it. bring it into Second Life, export, you already did export your textures, and then bring it into Second Life and place your items on it, and it should, or place your texture on the object, and it should be good to go. So now let's do our chair. And our chair, we're going to have two textures on it. Yeah, I was just checking to see if that was going to be a problem or not, but it's fine. Um, so we're going to go ahead and join our chair parts together. So we got our legs and our seat. We're going to Control J to join them together. And let's jump over into UV editing and hit A on our chair. Turn this overlays back on so you can see. So we have this, and you can see already that things are overlapping. So I am just going to do a U and unwrap it again, and that does everything for me. Check your margin as usual. I'm going to kill this texture off here because we don't need it right now. So there's our chair. Everything looks like it's lining up the proper way, but I want two different materials on here. So the first material is going to be, let's jump into shading, on the chair, and we're going to go down here to our material properties, and I'm going to go ahead and add the first material, which is the wood material of the table. So now our chair has that. We go back to layout, we can actually add another one. So back over here, we need to change this material properties again. And if you click this little plus sign, it gives you a new material. Materials in Second Life are faces. Let's not forget that. So we're adding a second face to our table, or to our chair. So I'm going to click new. And when I click new, I can go to shading, and that material is selected. So this is what we have. And I'm going to hit Control T and open. Sorry, Control T with the Principal BSDF selected. Click open, desktop, and we put that material on there. I've downloaded a new material, but as you can see, there's no material on the chair. So let's go back to layout, go into material preview, and the whole thing's still wooden even though we have two materials there. And the reason for that is we haven't assigned the second material to anything. So I'm going to hit tab on the chair, and I'm going to select this front face here, and I'm going to select the shift select the face of the seat, select that material, and click assign, and that puts the material on there, but it's not the right scale. So if I go to shading and change this to material preview, I can see it on there. And I'm actually going to go back into object mode and hide the table for now just to get it out of the way. So that's our seat cover material. And I could change the scale. Wrong one. See there, I have this material selected. Hit C. The chair is actually sharing the material with the table. And if we don't want it to, we can hit the little 2 here. And what that does is, this is a little harder to explain. So let me unhide the table again. So the table and the chair wood are using the same material, even though they're two objects, because I assigned it here. If I want it to be a second material on its own, I can hit the little 2 up here. I can hit the little 2 down here, and it will take this and just make a copy of the same texture, but they won't be following the same mapping node. So I'm going to hit that 2, and now it changes to a 1. Well, it doesn't change to 1, it just changes the name of the material altogether, so I can rename the material to chair wood. Now with the chair selected, it's a material by itself, and I put the wrong one on there, so I'm going to change that to chair wood, and I'm going to select the table and change it to just material. So it adds another material in the drop down list here. So I got chair wood, this one will be table wood. If I click the chair again, I got material 2. I can rename that to chair cloth. And then there's another material, I don't know what it is, but we don't need it anyway. Let me change that back. So now we have that there. And if we select the cloth material on the chair, we can, let's hide the chair again, or hide the table again. Select a chair cloth, change the scale of it to something we like. It's not seamless apparently, but I don't care if it's seamless right now. I just want to give you the idea. Yeah, something like that. And now this thing is almost ready to bake. Again, you have to go to layout and check your face orientation. Everything's blue, so that's good. Turn that back off. Go back to material preview. We can check the shadows. So even though the table is hidden, and so if I hide the table again, oh, that's the chair. Let's name this. There we go. So the table is casting the shadow on the chair, but if you hide the table, in the viewport, it hides the shadow. But with the camera turned on, when you bake it, it's still going to have the shadow there. So if you don't want the shadow at the table, you need to de-render the table. You don't have to worry about the visibility. It's all about the camera over here, whether or not it bakes or not. But I do want the shadow of the table on the chair, so I'm going to leave it be, but I can still hide the table. Go back to shading. Um, the table's wood has the table bake, which it doesn't matter what it's named, but we can make a new one if we want. So we'll make a new one. New. 512 is good. Alpha's off. Name it chair bake. Click OK. So now this is the chair bake. Well, CC chair apparently. And we need to actually have it on this material also. So our cloth material doesn't have anything to bake to. So we can select our chair, right click it, and copy that image texture, and then go over here and just paste it in. So now both materials have the same image to bake to. So our UV map is set up to be good. Our materials both have the bake. The chair is selected. So now we can go to the render properties and bake it out. So bake. And there's our chair bake. It's a little dark, but that's okay. And you can see the shadow of the table hitting the chair, even though the table's not there, but the camera is still turned on. So that's our bake. Now we can export our chair. Remember, before you export, check your scale. My scale is wrong, so this chair is not that size. So, Q, all transforms, that changes everything to 1. Now the chair is actually that size. If I were to upload it into Secondlife without doing that, the chair is going to be much bigger than that. So let's file, export Collada. Like I said, the operator presets are already set. I want it on the desktop. I'm going to name it chair and export it. Back into Secondlife. Build, upload, mesh model, chair. Turn the bottom one to 0 because we don't need to see it 5 sims away. Physics, we have to have one, so we'll put a cube on there. Calculate weights and fees, and upload. Drag out our chair, and we have our chair. I did not save the texture, so back to Blender. Go to shading, hit a little 3 buttons here. Let's zoom that out. And the image has an asterisk. Save as, desktop. Chair bake is fine. Save image. Back to Secondlife. Plus sign, upload image. Find the bake. That's the bake. Upload it. And drop it on the chair. And because it has 2 materials, that's one face. And then we can put the chair bake on the second face. It's pretty dark, but you can brighten that up in Blender just by changing the light. It actually matches the table, so that's fine. And if we go here and we go to layout and we look at our table and chair, they're both a little dark, but we can just turn the lighting up. And we'd have to rebake it again. But if we bake it like that, now that would look way better in Second Life. Could probably even turn it up a little more. And just to show you that, we will go back to here and we will rebake this chair. And then save the image again. Just going to save it right over the other one. Back into Second Life. Plus, upload image. That's our new bake. And put that on there. Put that on there. And that brightens it up a little bit. A lot of times you have to bake quite a bit brighter than Blender's actually showing to get it to look good in Second Life. I don't know why that is, but that is baking two materials to one model. Okay, so now we've done the single color and the multiple color. Now we're going to do two objects to one UV. So this is already unwrapped, and the chair is also already unwrapped. Let me turn my overlays on. So that's the chair, and that's the table. And if we shift select both of them, now they're both overlapping on the UV because of how they are. So if we select the chair and hit L on all its part, actually, just do. Yeah, seems fine. I have to select all these manually. So that's the chair. Its UV is overlapping with the table, so we can grab this whole UV and just move it to the side here. And then if we hit A over here, now we have the table there and the UV here. And what's going to happen is I'm going to scale these down, but when I do, it's going to cause an issue with the texture. So I'm going to hide my overlays here and go into material preview. And I'm going to scale these UVs down, and if you watch, the whole thing is going to just go crazy on me. So I'm going to scale them down, and I'm scaling them down so that I can fit both of them on the same UV. You can also just do a UV pack islands, and it'll put them all in there, and it changes the scale of everything here. But it lines everything up the way you need it to. So pack islands is pretty good, and you can change the margin here to, you know, give it some more UV space. The more UV space that you have, the better quality the texture. So you're going to have some pixelation doing this on something that's got a lot of parts or something you need to see well. So now that we have that, we can jump into shading, and we can adjust each color to, we can adjust the UV map to change the size of the texture. So this is going to be the chair wood. So I'll look at the chair wood here and just scale it to where I like it again. And then the chair cloth. And then we can actually just select the parts in object mode to get our other one. So this is the table wood, and we'll just change it to be what we want here. And that looks good. Now, if I shift select them again and go into UV editing, we still got that. Our wood design is how we want it. Not really, but you get the idea. But because we changed the UV, it changes the size of the texture. So then we, just recapping, we go back to the each material itself and change the UV map or the mapping node to adjust our texture back to where we wanted it. Now we can bake these two to the same texture. We have to make sure that, just like the other one, we have the image texture on all three materials, so two here and one for the table. So we'll just make a new one here. And since we scaled it down, we're just going to make this a little bigger. So new, and we're going to leave it at 1024. We're going to name it pair table combined and click OK. We're going to copy it, select a chair, select a chair wood, right click and paste it, put it here, and then the chair cloth, right click and paste it, put it here. Make sure both objects are selected and go to the rendering tab, scroll down, we'll still use 512 samples, and bake. So if you watch the bake, it's not changing it. There it goes. So all of that is baked now. So we have our table over here and our chair over here and some other parts over here. And we can now export these as 2 parts. But we're going to need, we can't just use a cube for the physics in Secondlife, so we'll make 2 cubes here. So Shift A, Mesh, Cube. We'll just move it over here and Shift D and copy it. Because we're exporting 2 parts, so we need 2-part physics models. So these 2 parts, now mind you, don't forget that you still have to check your base orientation to make sure it's all blue, and your scale to make sure it's applied and that your dimensions are what you want. So they are. So we're going to file, export collada, and we changed the lighting so it's going to be a little brighter table. We're just going to leave it on a desktop here as that. I've closed Blender and reopened it, so I need to do my static and uncheck copy and export collada. And then we also need our bake, so go back to our bake. And the image has an asterisk, so save as. Chair and combined is good. Go on the desktop, save. And also we need to export our cubes for our physics model. So file, not import, export collada. And we're going to name this underscore HYS and send it to the desktop. Export. Okay, now we can go into Secondlife, go into build, upload, mesh model, and we're going to do table and chair. And that's our model. Everything's looking like it's right side out. We did check the facing orientation. We're going to go ahead and change the lowest to 0. Go to physics, choose one, from file, browse, and we're doing our chair physics DAE. And that looks correct. Got cube on the table, cube on the chair. Back to level of detail. And we're going to turn off this physics so we don't see it. And I just want to check the model itself to see what it looks like. So the medium is kind of low, so we're going to turn it up. Actually, it's so low that we could just use from above. But if you have a higher model, you're going to want to change this till it appears in the, well, I'm changing the wrong one. Turn this one up until you get what you want. So 74 is good. So I'm going to leave it at 74, and then we'll go to low, and I'm going to turn it up till it appears. It's probably going to be 74 also, yep. And that's going to be fine. And that's how you figure out whether or not it's going to break in Secondlife. If you can't get this high enough to look good and actually upload at a decent land impact, then you're going to need to make your own physics models to make it look good, but that's something for later. Anyhow, we're going to upload this and res it out. And because I did what I did, if I back away from it, it doesn't break. But if it breaks when you back away from it, then you're going to have a problem. And while we're talking about that, if you go down here to your Firestorm and you check the load factor, you want to have it set at 2 because that's the lowest for everybody pretty much. If you have it set at 4 and it looks good, if I look at it with my 2, it might break. So you don't want it to break for people that have a 2. So now we need our texture, upload, image, and table and chair combined, upload. And now we can drop those on there. So that's on the table, the chair, and the cushion. It's still a little dark, but it's getting better. It may be my wind light settings again. Nope, we're good. so that's multiple objects. So these are still two separate objects. Because we uploaded them the way we did, they come in as a link set. So if we edit linked, we can edit this one and move it around. And we can edit this one and move it around. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and you learned something, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons. I also have a link to Celestine's page, who does clothing for Second Life, and a link to a video where I'm doing a lot of more advanced techniques of texturing while we're making a house. Thanks, and I will see you in the next one.